They are really neat. Good afternoon. Is this thing on?
I think so.
Welcome to construction of Kytc HSIP's first mini roundabout lessons learned. Announcements here they want me to read. Preferred method for evaluation is using the app. I'm sure you all heard this today. I have heard a couple of comments. The app doesn't work for some folks. I guess see them at the Tech Help Center and they can help you with that. Reception tonight from 4:45 until 7 in the Grand Ballroom A and B. Will include the vendor hall, prize raffle, snacks, and cash bar. The green drink ticket located inside your badge will be honored for tonight's reception. Our speakers today, Joel Morrill. Joel is project manager at Gresham Smith with over 26 years of transportation engineering experience. He is most passionate about roadway safety for all users and serves as project manager for Gresham Smith's HSIP contract with Kytc. In his free time, Joel enjoys golfing, running, and restoring old Land Cruisers and taking care of pet. Jeremy Kubac. Jeremy graduated from the University of Louisville with a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering. He's worked in the Louisville office at Gresham Smith since 2001, managing the transportation design team. His experience includes roadway and drainage, innovative intersections, shared use, trails, and complete streets. He's past president of ASHE, Derby City section, and a recent graduate of leadership PE. Jeremy lives in Shepherdsville with his wife, Alice, and 4 children. Mike Vaughn, transportation engineer specialist for Kentucky Transportation Cabinet within the Division of Traffic Operations in the central office in Frankfurt. In his current role, Mike is one of 3 engineers who administer Kytc's Highway Safety Improvement Program. He is also one of Kytc's representatives on the AASHTO Committee on Safety. Mr. Vaughn has worked with HSIP since April of 2014, lives in Frankfurt with his wife Emily and 2 boys, Mason and Aaron. In June 2016, Mike Vaughn checked off a major bucket list item when played in event number 33 in the World Series of Poker. I guess I'll need to know what that is. And then we have Shane Ramey. Shane is transportation engineering technologist in the District 9 office.
All right, so today's presentation is about our mini roundabout. If you were part of the partnering conference last year, you may have saw a presentation about this same intersection and same design. It's Bath County, US 60, where US 60 intersects Kentucky 801. And last year we had the design wrapped up, but construction had not started. So last year's presentation kind of focused more on the design aspects of the roundabout. This year we thought we would take a more of a lessons learned type perspective. Construction is now finished, it's open to traffic. So give some feedback from our construction partners and even some of the things we've learned post-construction, but also talk a little about some of the lessons learned through the design process as well. Before we kind of jump into all that, I wanted to take just a couple of minutes here and sort of talk about why Kytc is so interested in innovative intersections and particularly mini roundabouts. At the most basic level, I gotta figure out. Okay, hang on.
Page up and downward.
There we go. All right. So the most basic level, it's because people's lives matter. You know, the safety program, we're very much about trying to prevent serious injuries and deaths as much as possible. So just right out the gate, this is the #1 reason why. But a little more specifically about why mini roundabouts is because roundabouts provide exceptional safety. What we've traditionally been seeing over the years from before and after studies is that roundabouts have anywhere from 60 to 80% fewer severe crashes, fatal and serious injury crashes, as compared to a signalized intersection. A lot of the reason why comes down to an analysis of the conflict points. Roundabouts only have 8 total conflict points, whereas traditional intersections have 32. But more importantly is the comparison of those crossing conflicts. These crossing conflict points is where we tend to have those angle crashes, or in the culinary terms, the T-bone crash. But we go from 16 in a conventional intersection all the way down to the good old 0 crossing conflicts. And when people can't get themselves into those T-bone crashes, well, of course, you're going to have a lot of great safety benefits. So it ultimately comes down to those conflict points. Is why we believe that safety performance is so much better. But you might be thinking, well, okay, yeah, roundabouts do that, but why do they got to be a mini roundabout? Why not just build just a conventional size roundabout? Well, we like to think that mini roundabouts have the opportunity to provide really exceptional value. To kind of be in the mini roundabout territory, the inscribed diameter is 90 feet or less, so they're pretty small footprint. So smaller footprint generally means less right-of-way acquisition, possibly no right-of-way acquisition, and the opportunity for utility conflicts with a smaller footprint is a lot less as well. And so anytime we can acquire less right-of-way and have less impacts, that's going to save us some time and money. Also, just the footprint being smaller, construction costs tend to be lower. And so when you can achieve a lot of those roundabout benefits, but at a lower cost, well, then that is what leads to these exceptional value type of mentality here. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Joel. He'll talk a little more in detail about this particular mini roundabout and take it from there.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you all for sticking around this afternoon. We certainly appreciate being able to present to you about this project. So Mike talked a little bit about why roundabouts in general, but why this roundabout? Why was this intersection a good candidate for a mini roundabout? Well, the answer is because of its high crash history, its traffic demands, and its existing large footprint. We analyzed the crashes that had occurred in the previous 15 years and noticed a steady trend of increasing injury crashes at the intersection. And this is despite Kytc's repeated efforts, continued efforts over that 15-year period to implement traditional safety countermeasures. Some of those safety countermeasures are traditional ones, some a little bit more than traditional. They included double oversized and flashing signs, warning signs, transverse rumble strips, and overhead red flashers. Yet crashes were continuing to happen. So it became clear that this intersection was an opportunity to do something innovative and creative to try to stem this trend of increasing injury crashes. But any safety countermeasure that need to be considered must also take into account the traffic demands for this area. And there are 2 major factors related to this intersection. One is its proximity to I-64, and the second is its proximity to Cave Run Lake. So starting with I-64, when there's a crash on I-64 in the area, US 60 is the official detour for traffic, and all traffic is routed through this intersection. So any recommended safety improvement must be capable of, must have the capacity to accommodate safely and efficiently the large volume of trucks that would be using the intersection US 60 from the detour from 64. In addition, because these trucks are coming from I-64, WV 67 tractor trailers also needed to be accommodated. Regarding Cave Run Lake, this intersection serves as a kind of an entry point into Cave Run Lake, which is to the south of this intersection, which is a heavy recreational area. So in addition to accommodating the WV 67 trucks, countermeasures also need to be safe to safely and efficiently accommodate campers pulling boats and trucks pulling houseboats as well, which is certainly something that needed to be maintained. So it became clear that a mini roundabout could be a good solution to address the safety and traffic demand of the intersection but would it provide this exceptional value that Mike had mentioned earlier in the presentation? So to determine this, we move forward with a conceptual mini roundabout layout, determine how much new pavement would be required in addition to the existing pavement footprint, what drainage infrastructure would be required, what utility relocations would be required, and what right-of-way would be required. By centering the mini roundabout within the existing somewhat large footprint, we're able to make it so there was very little new pavement required, very few utility impacts, no right-of-way required, and the drainage, instead of there being underground storm sewers, was directed to flumes on the outside of the footprint of the intersection. So with the minimal impacts and the relatively low cost, project team determined that this mini roundabout would indeed provide exceptional value. So we moved forward with design and public involvement, which leads to the first part of our pre-construction lessons learned. So as with most roadway projects, a robust public engagement education campaign was key to the project's success. Key stakeholders were identified and contacted by the project team and included elected officials, fire and rescue, police, U.S. Forest Service, schools, Chamber of Commerce, Army Corps of Engineers, and many others. In addition, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet Public Information Officer for District 9 released information on the proposed mini roundabout to media outlets to advance the public education campaign well ahead of construction. A digital and hard copy brochure called Mini Roundabouts 101 was also developed by the project team and distributed by the PIO, the Public Information Officer, that provided general information about mini roundabouts, how they work, and their benefits. Online public outreach was extensive as well. The PIO primarily used Facebook to announce the upcoming mini roundabout project, provide reasons why a safety improvement was needed, and explain how a mini roundabout would help address the severe crash issues at the intersection. In addition to the media engagement, a public meeting was held in the community to answer questions, listen to concerns, and educate attendees on the anticipated benefits of the mini roundabout. So what are our lessons learned with the public engagement effort? We would say, as much as possible, educate the public and stakeholders about the why, the what, and how of mini roundabouts in general before an actual project is identified. We found that communities tend to embrace and trust roadway safety projects, especially ones that are non-traditional, if they understand their safety benefits before a safety project is being proposed in their community. So if you think a mini roundabout could be a good solution in your community or one for one of your clients' communities, we suggest you consider an educational outreach program before implementing a specific mini roundabout project. Another pre-construction lesson learned is the importance of the pre-construction and the need to emphasize and reinforce the unique aspects of a mini roundabout project. Most mini roundabouts are constructed under traffic, so it's critical that the contractor understand the unique sequencing, maintenance of traffic, flagging operations, and liquidated damages. We also recommend that the PIO be involved with all project information that is released to the public. This will help ensure consistent and accurate information is provided regularly, helping to build and maintain trust among the public and the project stakeholders. So those are some of the key lessons learned for pre-construction. I'll turn it over to Shane and he will talk about our lessons learned during construction.
Okay, as far as during construction goes, I was actually in with Mike and them on the team from the time this started. And as far as knowing this intersection, I grew up about 5 miles west of there and live about 5 miles east of there now. So the good, the bad, the ugly, I know a lot of people in the area, so I get to hear it. But we started off, once we knew we were going to do this, we knew that the traffic impact would have to be lessened as much as we could. And the best way that we found to do that was by lessening the time that we were actually in this intersection. So we made the decision early on in the meetings We were going to give them 15 days from start to finish. Okay. 3 days inside that 15 was actually set aside the maximum to construct Center Island. And with that being said, we're $1,000 an hour on either one of those overages. But the good part of that is we didn't charge a penny. So they knew that going in, you know. I'm sure we probably paid for that a little bit, as is to be expected when we do that. But we felt like that it was worth it to lessen that impact on that traffic. As far as the reason electrical supplies is shown, that was really our only hiccup of anything we had. I'm sure, as all of you are aware, there was this thing called the coronavirus that's out there, and Canada jumped on that early and shut their borders down, and all those poles are aluminum, and they all come out of Canada. So they told us about that early. We were able to work with central office traffic to locate a couple of really good shaped poles. And then when the new ones come in, we just pulled the swap and everything was okay. But just worth noting that, you know, you have to get your contractor to come present those problems to you so you can work with them and try to still get the project going. And the reason that's such an important fact is the overhead lighting has to be in place and working before they can turn the intersection actually into the movement of the roundabout. If those aren't working, they had to continue 24-hour flagging until it was. MOT, of course, we had message boards on I-64. We had a message board 1 mile back on each quadrant, each leg of 801, each leg of US 60, warning people what was going on. The contractor come to us early on and actually proposed a lane shift each direction on 801 and each direction on 60 in order to build the inside radius aprons, which are there for over tracking in the trucks when they make a turn, and also the flumes. They presented that at no expense to us. They come in, ground off the existing striping, shifted everything to one side, was able to work behind cones and barrels on the other. Still had to do some minor flagging, but it wasn't like we were flagging all the time to get those started. So that really helped lessen the impact also. The Center Island phasing, in the proposal, it actually, as we put it together, we told them to build the Center Island first and then build the splitters. As you can tell, there's not really a good tail or a leading edge on those islands to force you to the right. They do, but it's not distinct like a right in, right out, a lot of places that you've seen. So they proposed to build those first. And then at night, when they left, the stop signs are still up. As long as the island wasn't there, we used the intersection as a four-way stop. Once we started the center, they had proposed to slip form the ring using a curb machine. They made a box to get that lip, okay? Poured that 18-inch wide gap, proposed dialing it in at no expense to us, which wasn't there because that was all supposed to be poured together. And then they come back the next day and poured the center with basically the forms in place. You know, they had formed it the next day. So they were in and out of there in 2 days. We used a 24-hour mix, and they had put an extra bag of cement in it with the coloring. And about 4 hours after we got done, those flaggers were asking traffic which way they were going. So coming out of the left-hand side of the screen, we had a truck come down, and he wanted to go into the top. So he should have went on the left, that splitter island, and not. He didn't tell him, so he come and his trailer actually tracked over this bottom side. I mean, it's very minimal of what you can see in just a tire train. So some of our flagging was our biggest issue, not the way they did it. It's because people would not communicate with it. I don't know if it was COVID time, they didn't want to roll the window down, but they were actually trying to ask them which direction you're going. And then when they send them, that would dictate what side of that island they would put them on so they could keep them out in the middle so we could work. We had 4 flaggers at all times during the day when we were working. We actually had a controller, commander, if you want to call it, in the middle. That way he was watching out for the workers, the concrete truck when it moved. You know, he was the one leading the show. So if any of you followed this, you know there was a video that made it to YouTube, I guess anywhere from across the seas to back eastern Kentucky. We're going to show about 30, 40 seconds of that video. What the video doesn't tell you is this is under a flagging condition. And you're going to see they're actually trying to ask these people which direction they're going so they know where to send them, but they won't tell them. Okay. So with that, you're going to get some conflict points because some people, as you all know, if you've been in the field very much, they want to go and turn right. They want to stay in the right lane. You put them in the other lane, they just panic. So we're going to play this video. So as you can tell, you only see traffic coming from what's the bottom quadrant right now, because all the other flaggers are holding their traffic. See, the people turning left at the bottom, or they told us where they wanted to go. But then this guy here, because he wanted to go straight through. Oh, now I don't know why that was stopped. I don't know what he's doing. So, oh, look out, here we go. So, but as you can tell, all the traffic is still only coming from one direction. So, you know, that video was out there. It was a minute and a half, 2 minutes long at super speed play because it was filmed from a drone that day. You know, it is what it is. But anyway, that was our biggest thing in construction, was just the flagging and trying to get it done. You know, on a shortened job like that, you've got to really have people out there that are going to make decisions and going to work with contractors because you don't have days. And we talked about that going in. You know, Mike, I know Ron's in the room here. We knew that there might have to be some decisions made in a hurry. You know, you don't have a 25-day window to try to pull the change room. Luckily, we didn't have that problem. I think we made it through very minimal and got it done. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy to bring us home and let him finish up.
Thank you, Shane. All right, it's not every day that you see a mini roundabout on a 55-mile-per-hour rural facility. And since this is a new concept, we've recognized that it was possible that adjustments were going to have to be made after after it was open to traffic. Fortunately, it's really worked well, but in spite of that, we've still found some ways to improve the performance through follow-up site visits and listening to user feedback. The lessons that we learned on this implementation, it's going to help with improving this roundabout as it stands, but also these lessons are going to feed into future mini roundabout design projects. Some of the feedback indicated that the users might not be fully aware of the intersection in time to slow down safety. And in order to address this, the standard yield ahead signs that were placed at the before the approaches to the roundabout are going to be replaced with oversized LED enhanced versions with yellow reflective tape on the posts. And this is just to give a stronger visual cue that it's time to slow down. And when this was constructed, the design had incorporated the existing thermoplastic rumble strips that had been placed for the four-way stop intersection. So we went ahead and kept those in place, and where they weren't present, we went ahead and put them back in so they were on all four legs. Now looking back, the idea is to go ahead and put in construct milled rumble strips that are going to give make a lot more noise, give you a lot more feedback. And that's going to be done with an adjacent resurfacing project that's going to go up to that's going to abut the project limits of the roundabout. So it's not going to resurface what's already been done. And then moving closer to the roundabout, some of the local destination guide signs that weren't impacted by the project are going to be relocated to try to reduce the sign clutter in the area and, make it to get more attention to the signs, to the yield signs and the roundabout ahead signs to get people more focused on the roundabout. It's also recognized that some users, although there may be, there's not any other roundabouts in the area, but most people have heard of roundabouts, but they may not necessarily be familiar with the roundabout symbol with the 3 arrows in a circle, or the use of shark's teeth for yield lines. And so what we're going to do to address that is put the word yield on the pavement before the shark's tooth yield line. And then at the yield sign, right at that location, that's going to be replaced with an oversized yield sign that still has the roundabout symbol, but includes the word, the actual word roundabout to reinforce what's going on here. And then red reflective tape on that post. When this was designed, we had included colored concrete on all the splitter islands and the raised central island in order to try to make sure that they're as visible as possible. But even then, with them being traversable, they're only 3 inches high. So, one addition that's going to be used here is the yellow reflective lane striping tape that's going to be added to the concrete lip curve around the central island to really make that delineation. So while much of the user feedback that we got came through the extensive social media outreach, there were some other users' feedback that we intentionally went after because of their proximity to the project. During the design, the district staff had made the team aware of a local contractor who had a nearby quarry who frequently used this intersection with various truck and trailer combinations. As this knowledge was fed into our design process, we were really excited to go back to that contractor afterward and try to get some feedback into how, what's life like post roundabout. And so after reaching out to that contractor, the representative, he informed us that their drivers had no issues getting through the roundabout. It's really not affected their business, and it's been completely been a non-issue for them. And then he was even able to, because he's local in the area, he was able to provide some other comments from drivers, people that are familiar with the roundabout now, that really help support some of the ideas that we've had for making changes to the signs, because they were seeing some of the same issues that led to us making those decisions. We've also heard that a lot of the recreational vehicles that and the oversized trailers with houseboats haven't had any issues getting through the roundabout. And that was one of our concerns early on, that we needed to make sure that we accommodate those folks going to and from Cave Run Lake. There have been a few crashes, and consistent with the typical crash rate for this intersection, but no serious injury crashes. This is in line with expectations of roundabouts, that total crashes don't always decrease, but severe crashes almost always are reduced. And then some anecdotal evidence has indicated that there's been a few motorists who have driven straight through the central island without slowing down. And, because it's secondhand knowledge, we don't know the nature of the what all went on there, if there was any damage, or if it was intentional or unintentional. It likely could have been somebody having some fun. Let's see. And then capacity has not been an issue. Even when large vehicles slowly navigate through the roundabout, we've not heard about any problems with queues developing. It's really they're able to make it through pretty smoothly. We've had quite a bit of video, right after the roundabout opened, that showed how effective it was. And we've even gotten feedback from the local fire department. During one of the crashes, they were actually able to keep traffic moving on all 4 legs while the emergency vehicles were there. And when there was the queue, some queue had developed, but as soon as the emergency vehicles cleared out, the queue just, dispersed pretty quickly. So now this is a video clip of some drone footage that was taken shortly after it opened. You can see the grass hasn't even popped out. And so this is without local drivers getting much experience. And what you can see is that, users are approaching with caution, but as soon as there's an opening, they just go on through without hesitation. Tractor trailer pretty much uses it as it's designed for the cab to go around the circulatory roadway and the trailer to track over the central island. And we've got several clips that are, 5 or 10 minutes apiece. And, a lot of this same scenario where people, occasionally somebody will get there and hesitate. And I understand that because this was just days after this opened. But really it's been, it's really worked out well and been happy to be a part of it. That's all I've got. I guess it's time to open it up for questions.
What was the cost to construct it?
I can't remember the exact number, but just roughly we were in the $600,000 range. So considerably cheaper than most full-size roundabouts. It would be generally over $1 million, closer to $2 million. So depending on the size, because many roundabouts you can go. We've got some that are in the works that have an inscribed diameter down around 60 feet. We've got estimates as low as like 225,000 for some. Working with a gentleman named Mark McCullough in Michigan, that's where we kind of got the idea for this particular application. He mentions that a lot that they've built up near Dexter, Michigan, that have come in anywhere from 300 to 600,000. So they're quite a bit more cost effective. Yeah, Brian.
We just constructed 2 of these on the smaller version, another part of the state in a residential neighborhood on a city street. We've got issues on it with being in a more congested area. The inside radius is a barrier curb, and people are hesitant to mount the mountable curb on the splitter in Middle Island, and they're all black right now. Is that more a getting information out and people getting familiar with it, or is that an issue with a decreased diameter?
For those online, if you didn't hear the question, we got a couple of mini roundabouts in Elizabethtown that quite a bit smaller than the one here in Bath County. And the outside curbing is standard curb, whereas the splitter island and central islands are mountable. But they're noticing a lot of black scuff marks. So essentially what would be a conventional right turn is it's kind of tight because the diameter is small. And so a lot of people are sometimes tire scrubbing those barrier curbs. And so the question, is that more of a function of the size or people not understanding that they're allowed to mount the splitter islands and central island? I think it's a little of both. I think that a lot of passenger cars don't realize that mountable medians can be mounted or mountable designs can be mounted. And I think the other part though is those in Elizabethtown are small. I think those 2 that we first built are 2 of the smaller. We got 7 total in Elizabethtown in the works. Those 2 are the first 2 to be constructed over there. But I want to say they're somewhere in the 60-foot range, give or take a few feet. And so I think that kind of small size, it's just going to take those locals a little time to kind of get used to judging their vehicle positioning. And, it's kind of like anytime you encounter a new facility is, or you're driving a different, the first time you pull a trailer, when you're learning to drive, you're told, hey, this thing off tracks, but until you kind of get used to it, you don't always. You either overcompensate way too much or not enough. And so I think a lot of that is just people needing to get used to the design. And I think some education on the fact that, look, you can mount this splitter island or even the central island if you need to. One thing that I think in hindsight for those in E-Town, kind of the lesson learned, was that we should have made those exterior curbs kind of in the 4 corners. We should have made those mountable too. We did do that on this one. So this one actually came first, and we didn't always apply even what we thought about from one project to the next, go figure. We're human, but I think that's one thing. And so we are doing that with our other E-town roundabouts, is to make the exterior islands mountable too. And I want to say maybe we're looking at trying to change order to get rid of the more standard high barrier size outer curving and make it before we, close out that contract.
And you said it's a residential areas. I assume there's sidewalks and crosswalks.
Yeah, it's a much lower volume, more traditional location for many roundabouts is speed limits of 35 or less and fairly small percentage of truck and not necessarily a lot of volume. And so the ones in Elizabethtown, they're much more traditional locations. This one here in Bath County, it kind of goes against the grain of what the initial federal guidelines were. But like I mentioned, there have been several of mini roundabouts just like this one in Bath County that have been built up near Dexter, Michigan. And they've had some really good success with theirs. Even one of theirs was built at an intersection into an industrial complex. And we're like, well, dang. And it was 80-foot diameter too. Like it was, it's on the big side for a mini, but really small for all the trucks. And it's worked really well for them. And so that kind of gave us the courage, like, we can do it too, then let's, and we had a four-way stop here. And that's kind of the ultimate of intersection safety, and it wasn't working. So that gave us the incentive too to try something different. Four-way stop's not working, let's consider roundabout. So. Yeah, Josh.
Did you try to design a normal roundabout and see what the impacts of the cost were? Or
no, at least I don't think we laid out a full size.
We had one iteration internally.
Yeah, we found out the impacts would be significant.
Okay, so yeah, the question for those of you virtually was, did we consider a full size roundabout? I didn't realize we had, but the Gresham Smith team did do a quick layout of what a more conventional size roundabout would be. And basically quickly saw that the impacts were going to be extensive, and just as a kind of an internal check. But me and Nathan Ridgway, we were kind of the ones that I guess in a way instigated let's consider a mini to begin with. So we kind of already had it in our mind that, yeah, the cost of a full size is going to it's going to be too cost prohibitive. And so we kind of already had it in mind. It's either a go or no go decision on a mini. It sounds like the Gresham Smith team did look at just what would a full size roundabout look like. But speaking of lessons learned, what this presentation is about. When we were up in Michigan, me and Nathan, Brad Bottoms, Paul Sanders, Wendy Southworth from Kytc, we all went up to a mini roundabout symposium up in Dexter, Michigan, to specifically look at a couple of their mini roundabouts that pretty much just look just like this one. But one of the things that we picked up from them, like their lesson learned, was a lot of the truck drivers really quick realized, like, yeah, I'm just going off track. It's okay. They designed for it. But what they hadn't done at their 7, they have 7, well, more than that now, but then they had 7. They hadn't done any kind of apron design in the 4 corners. And so when the trucks did just a normal right turn, they were off tracking over into the earth berm behind the curb and just rutting it out horrible. They were just constantly having to go back in there and fix the ruts. And at the one by the industrial complex where they had so much trucks. And so they were like, that was just one of the things they mentioned. Like, if you're going to have trucks, larger trucks, just go ahead and harden those 4 corners and account for it. And so that's what we did in air design. You can kind of see the colored concrete in the corners. That we just went ahead and used the same apron, or the design of those aprons was the same as that central island. I think 9 inches thick, because we just knew they're going to take a beating. So let's build them robust. Any other final question? Well, we're at 3:40, so thanks for coming and listening to us talk. Appreciate it.